question is, there are things on earth right now that God has not revealed to mankind. I completely agree with that, and I have an analogy I'd like to make. So if you are a fifth grader, right, you don't learn calculus because you're not ready to learn calculus yet. If you're a high schooler, you don't learn quantum mechanics because guess what? You need more knowledge. That is a pre-requirement for you to learn quantum mechanics.
There is a great level of curiosity. There is an eagerness to learn, to know. And sometimes what happens is that that eagerness is so large that they become very quickly disappointed when they start studying. Because it's almost as if they come in waiting to find answers for everything.
We are still in our infancy of the spiritual, pathway towards progress. So there are definitely a lot of things that we are not able to comprehend, right? Should God have been able to allow us to have access to that information?
We need to see Spiritism as something that is evolving, something that is being constructed piece by piece. It is not something that is ready-made, so we will not have all the answers. We will not be able to discuss about everything that is out there because the things that we ignore today are there for us to discover through investigation, through our diligence, through a systematic approach. And this is what is important.
It's a process. It's earning merits according to our growth, according to our stance in spiritual truths. Things will be revealed to us little by little.
For us to know that what we do not know actually is much, much larger than what we already know. And that it's out there for us to apply ourselves and that we will find the answers.
One time, one day, eventually, once we get closer and closer to God, we'll have a much broader understanding of why, or the reasons why we are here, the reason why God created, us, spirits. But I'm not really concerned about that. I think what we should be concerned is around teachings, it's around what the Revelation says about what Spiritism brings to humanity, to us as spirits, as human beings, right?
You look at science. I am astonished with particle physics. That didn't come to us right away. And now we know. Some of it, we don't know all of it yet. But look at the God particle. It's time. It was time for us to gain this knowledge.
As science progresses, right, as science continues to develop itself, more and more things are going to be known to humankind. For example, even Emmanuel, right, Francis Xavier's mentor, said one thing. If we're studying something, if I'm giving you any information that goes against science, even the Spirit told Kardec the same thing. If science goes in a different way, right, stick with science. The curiously about that is, up to today, right, science has not disproved anything that Spiritism has ever said. On the contrary, they're getting more or closer and closer to some of those things that we've learned from Andrea Lewis 7 years ago, even from Emmanuel in a couple of, more than half a decade ago.
God created science just the way that it needed to be, and that's all there is. Everything else will change. Elevated spirits bring knowledge to us all of the time through a plan. There is a plan in the spirit world with higher enlightened beings who are responsible for helping humanity evolve.
When we create this constructive atmosphere around us, we have a tendency to attract other human beings that are also positive about what we want to do. This is exactly the same thing that happens with respect to the spirits. The more constructive we are, the more we are going to attract constructive spirits or high order spirits.
Because if you think about a science, any scientific discovery or evidence, it was driven by a hypothesis. I think this is the way it's going to work. Let me test it out. Let me see if it's going to work. And then they found something new. So for them to think about the hypothesis, for scientists to go after an idea, a thesis, so to speak, or a hypothesis, they have to have some sort of intuition. Maybe driven by their studies, their research, their interviews, whatever it is that's driving them. And oftentimes it's the intuition, right? In the same way we see that with musicians, we see that with artists, a lot of intuition. The spirits are talking to us, are giving us that intuition all the time.
I think of it and I see it so clearly, is that there is a project in the spirit world that the humanity on earth is just about ready to gain this knowledge or this ability. A plan is created in the spirit world. They inspire, they give direct orders during their dreams.
So I'm going to paraphrase. It's 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, right? As we know it. We have to do our jobs. We have to do our part. And if we do our part right, if we are carrying out our activities in a way that's they're serious, they are honest, right? We're going to have a lot of inspiration. So we have a lot of spirits around us, our guardian angels, our mentors, those loved ones that are here with us, helping us, and they want us to succeed. They want all of us to succeed. So if we're doing our parts, they're going to whisper, hey, do this. Don't forget to do that. Don't forget your keys, right? Before you leave your house. Or those small things that sometimes they may not look so great, but if we don't have those, our lives would be a lot more difficult.
But it's very important that we understand that they will not do anything. They will motivate us. They will be like cheering for us, but they will not be actually taking the effort, doing the work for us. We are the ones who need to progress. We, especially when we compare ourselves to higher order spirits, to spirits that are now more evolved than we are, both morally and intellectually. They have already achieved that progress. So they cannot do the homework for us, because otherwise they would be robbing us of the opportunity of growing, of evolving towards them, to become one of them. But they will be there. They will be helping us by keeping us energized, by keeping us motivated, by giving us a sense of intuition about things, even some ideas we might have that may be contradictory in our heads. They might assist us, not in saying, take this one, eliminate that one, do this, not do that, do not do that. No, rather the opposite. They will actually allow us to focus our minds more and more so that we will find the solutions for ourselves.
I like the analogy that we're all, if you go to a stadium, right, we're all these players, not playing against a team, but it's playing against our own selves. I want to play today better than I played yesterday. I want to play tomorrow better than I played today. And guess what? 30, 40, 50,000 is the audience rooting for us. Those are our fellow spirits who are around us. They want us to succeed. They want us to do better. They want us to really keep doing what we're doing, keep developing what we're developing. If it's a good quality work that we're doing, whatever it is, Spiritist Center, a charitable work, whatever it is that we're doing, if it's a good quality work, if it's benefiting other people, humanity overall, they're going to help us out. They're going to give us some intuition. They're going to give us, hey, do this. A little whisper in our ears, do that. Don't forget this. Don't forget that. And we have to be very grateful to that.
Elements of the universe. I think that's an important but a very, very difficult question. Right away, we don't have all the answers. Let's be honest. To say otherwise would be hypocritical.
We have three general elements. One is God, the creator of all things, right? The creator that was not created. We have spirit and we have matter. Everything else, evolves from those three, right? You may ask, for example, what about our spiritual body? Our spiritual body is still made by a semi-material body or energetic body. Guess what? It's still matter, right? It's still made of matter. It's not a spirit.
what we have is a model. According to this model, we have a creator. The creator has created everything we know, and this is what we call the creation. So now within this big realm that is the creation, we divide it into two parts, not two halves, two parts. We have the side that is purely spiritual and a side that is purely material.
God created everything. But matter, we human beings have had a huge problem with matter because we want to define, weigh, and classify everything. But it's not possible with our level of knowledge.
On the material side, we have the equivalent of the material principle, which we call the universal cosmic fluid. The universal cosmic fluid is the part that is responsible for all the material side of the creation. The universal cosmic fluid now has many different manifestations. It can produce energy, it can produce dark energy, it can produce matter, antimatter, you name it.
When Allan Kardec wrote the Spirits book, he used the word fluid, right, to describe some of those fluidic activities, some of the energy. The word energy was not as popular back then as it is today. So some other folks may have the same knowledge as we Spiritists do, but they may call it a different way. They may call it fluid, as we call it, they may call it energy, as we call it fluid. So now that we have more science corroborating what we learned from Spiritism, the union between what we call it this moral code of ethics, this religion per se, and scientific evidence is getting more and more, right? We're aligning day by day, right?
We have names for different types of matter. Our physics today says that they're going to use one term, one word, matter, for all matter. They are no longer going to try to classify this one and that other one. And then I think of the fact that particle physics has grown so much that quite a few years back, the neutrino was discovered. A neutrino cannot be seen, but can be measured, can be weighed. They could trace it, but you can't see a neutrino.
The side that is purely spiritual, we have what we call the intelligence principle, or the spiritual principle there.
We say that a spirit is the intelligent principle of the universe.
The spiritual principle that's there is going to create the spirit. Here we have the first problem. How? We do not know. Not only that, we do not know how many of these are created, how they are created, how often, we just don't know. What we know so far is that the spiritual principle is in charge of creating new spirits. When we speak of this spiritual principle, some also call it the intelligence principle. Here, very important to mention, that is the intelligence principle, not the intelligent principle. The principle is not intelligent. It will give rise to intelligence. So it's a principle that will give rise to intelligence. So it's an intelligence principle. This is what is going to eventually allow us to interact at an intelligent level with our surroundings.
So the spirit is the intelligent being of the universe. That is correct. Matter is everything around us. The oxygen, this chair, this camera, right? Your shirt, your beautiful shirt. Everything that we see, we can touch, we can sense is matter. But the interesting thing that I see is our bodies, for example, are formed of matter. The Spirit's book uses the analogy that our body is the envelope in which the Spirit uses to carry out its activities, or its activities. It's an interesting analogy if you think about it, right? So spirits exist without matter. Matter is what we know and learn from this planet, right? So matter that's here today might be different than matter that's on a different planet. But in order for spirits to carry out, or to have our bodies, for example, our bodies are formed of matter. Different molecules, different cells, different atoms and stuff like that.
It is independent in the sense that it does leave the body and exists some other place, right? The body will go to the grave.
We actually exist as spirit, perispirit, as a dyad, as a being that has, in this model, two parts, a dyad. Then we might ask ourselves, well, what am I? We are the spirits. We are spirits, but we have a perispirit. We have to put great emphasis on these verbs. I am not this physical body. I have a physical body.
The curiously about that is, or the interesting thing about that is, our spiritual body, our perispirit, is connected to our physical body, molecule by molecule, right? So anything that we do to our physical bodies, our spiritual body, our perispirit, right, they will sense and vice versa, right? That's why when we talk about psychosomatic, illnesses, we talk about, the people that forgive more, they have healthier lives. That's science telling us, or confirming what we learned from Spiritism, that healthier minds, right? Mens sanas corpus sanus, as Descartes used to say in Latin, right? The mind who is sane, our body is also healthier, right, as we know it.
The physical body, when we have one, and we are here as a reincarnated being, we call ourselves a triad, a being with, let's say, three parts. We are spirits, we have a spiritual body, or perispirit, and if we are reincarnated, we also have a physical body, 3 in 1. The physical world is a part of the material world. So the physical body that we have as well is like the perispiritual body, but it only exists for a limited amount of time. Only while I am here in this physical world, which we call a reincarnation process.
The only time a spirit is completely without matter, when that becomes a pure spirit. That spirit doesn't have a need for a perispirit any longer. It doesn't have a need to incarnate any longer. Every time we are like souls or incarnate spirits, we have a relationship with matter in this world, in the planet that we live in. And our perispirit will go with us. When we discarnate, for example, when we pass, go back to the spirit world, we're going to still keep our perispirit from the previous incarnation.
Perispirit, or spiritual body, is nothing but a wonderful bridge between the totally non-material with the completely material to the point of being physical. Let us imagine that we go in front of a mirror, right? So for the moment now, let us forget about Spiritism for 1 second. Let us just think of the physical body that we have. We go in front of the mirror, and we are the object. The moment that we go in front of the mirror, we see an image there that is produced by the mirror. Now let's go back to Spiritism. I, the spirit, I approach the mirror, which is the universal cosmic fluid. The moment that I approach the universal cosmic fluid, I, the spirit, I produce an image. And the image is my perispirit, is my spiritual body. Much like the image, if I say hello, if I move my hand, if I blink, whatever I do, as an object in front of the mirror, the image also does the same thing. It's the same thing between the spirit and the perispirit. So the perispirit cannot be better, it cannot be worse than the spirit. It is actually the spirit, but the material manifestation of the spirit, which is actually non-material.
Matter is, the concept of matter that we learned from the Spirit's book is that everything else that we know was formed or was developed or was originated, I should say, by matter, right? So the chair, the oxygen, which is, if you look at science today, they're getting closer and closer, right, to understand that concept.
Matter is much more than we can perceive. We don't know what black holes are yet. So there is a lot of knowledge that we need to You have a quantum leap in order to understand it. So there is matter that we don't understand because our senses are limited by the physical body, which is restricted because of the laws that are right now stronger inside the planet.
We are actually the sum of our senses.
Matter is a question to be answered and to be studied, but there is an awful lot about matter that we do not understand.
Now, we can speculate intellectually of things we cannot grasp with our senses. But in the end, everything that we experience is with our senses. Since this body is made with a particular form or manifestation of matter, when we speak of matter, we immediately associate with what we have. The chair, the air we breathe, right? And the water we drink, and so on. But there are other, more subtle forms of matter that we are not aware of at the moment. We know this from what the spirits tell us. And we will one day be able to investigate those things.
If they, derivate all studies, all chemistry studies, all quantum mechanics, right? I'm not an expert by any means, but it's a topic that I have a lot of interest on it. They're trying to derivate everything that we see today in our lives. Where did that come from? What all these material things come from, right? And when I say material things, it's not talking about our clothes, this wall, these books. No, it's the air that we breathe, right? It's the things that sometimes we don't see. All the elements of the universe, right? All the material elements of the universe.
We cannot see the perispirit or the spiritual body. We cannot. But how do we know it exists? Because we know of the interactions with the spiritual realm, which happens through the perispirit or spiritual body.
So interesting thing, when you look at when the Spirit's book was written in 1857, its first edition, the concept, the different stages of matter were not known back then, right? So the only matter types that we knew was liquid, solid, right, and gas. Now there are a couple more types of matter that back then didn't even exist. People were not aware of that. Same idea of calculus, the fifth grader. I love analogies because this makes my brain think. So as we progress, maybe become a sixth grader, a seventh grader, right? We're getting closer and closer to understand more about calculus, more about different types of matter that, who knows, maybe they'll exist, they'll be presented to us in other stages as we keep progress, we keep getting knowledge, right?
And then according to that book by Emmanuel, Path of Light, he explained that spirits, enlightened spirits, came to earth and took the elements that existed on earth and created life.
A light is a wave, right? So same thing with sound. So they're waves. So waves is a type of matter that before wasn't even understood as being a type of matter. Waves, energy, they're all matter, right? As we know it. As we learn from Spiritism, everything derivates. Everything comes from the cosmic fluid, right? As we know it. Which is an interesting thing that now you see science getting more or closer to that concept. Some folks call it boson-Higgs, the particle of God. They call it different things. But more and more we see that they'll, as I mentioned before, they'll derivate from one generation, one source of all different types of matter, right?
So we start our journey. We come into existence through the Creator. The intelligence principle, part of this creation mechanism, is what gives rise to us. And this intelligence principle is, jokingly, a blessing and also a curse. In the sense that it's a blessing because it's what allows us, or has allowed us, to arrive today in now taking the human form to interact with the physical realm, and that will continue to allow us to move forward, that will propel us, that will push us forward. But at the same time, it's what gives us that inexhaustible curiosity that sometimes can be, well, not necessarily detrimental, but not necessarily beneficial. We sometimes bite onto too much. We have too much to chew on, and we have to be careful with these things. So when we talk about the universe, is one of these things.
What we learn from Spiritism is that God is the creator of the universe. It creates everything. God is much, much bigger, or much more, I'm lack of words here to describe, right? It's difficult to describe God. But God is the creator of everything, as we know it, right? So the creator of everything, including the universe. So if the universe were bigger than God, there wouldn't be such a thing as a God, because the universe was bigger. So as we understand, everything else comes second. God is the creator of all things, right? The first cause of all things, which is, by the way, the first question of the Spirit's book, right? What is God?
Of course we are curious, and there's nothing wrong. It's amazing that we can be curious. The curiosity that we have in defining the universe is in itself a wonder, is in itself a miracle, not in the sense of supernatural, in the original sense of the word miracle, which means something that astounds us, that places everybody in awe, that makes everybody surprised, but a good surprise. So this curiosity that we have is healthy, has to be there at all times. But we don't have, as we started, I mentioned that we don't have all the answers. We cannot tell if there are other universes, and what we can do is investigate.
As we learn from more and more science, corroborating what we learn from Spiritism, right? The concept of infinite and finite, I think it's a very difficult one, because we as human beings, speaking for myself here, have a very difficult time understanding what infinite is. When you look at the word finite, it was created here, it terminated there, right? Like, for example, this light is going to have a shelf life. Maybe it's 20,000 hours, right? My shirt's going to maybe last 10 years. Our material body is going to last 70, 80, 90 years, and that's it. Those are finite times as we understand it. When you look at infinite, right, there's no creation and no ending, right? And we believe that the only thing that's infinite is God, right? Because if the universe was infinite, right, it could have been created before God. That wouldn't make any sense to have God as the way we see it, right? So it was created, but it's not finite. It's not going to end tomorrow. So the end of the times, no, there's no such thing as end of the times, right? We're going to continue progressing, continue developing. That's the natural law of progress, right?
And there are theories of a parallel universe. There are theories that of the multiverse. There are many, not just one or two, but many of them. Then there are the theories that say that one universe collapses to form another one by another Big Bang. So the destruction of one is the beginning of another. Until we can show, we can prove, we should continue to investigate. And the beauty of Spiritism is that it allows us not only the freedom to ask, but most importantly, it gives us not permission, it gives us all the freedom and actually motivates us to pursue these investigations. So I can't just ask, because if I could just ask but I couldn't debate, it would be a moot point, because I wouldn't be able to gain anything from it. It would be just a show-off. Who can ask the most difficult question, or the question that would paralyze the speaker? But no, it allows us and motivates us to go and investigate, to analyze, and see what we can find.
Human beings fool themselves if they think that there is something that is lacking that is not in the universe or on Earth. It's a wrong line of thought, because the Creator gave us everything already ready for us. So if we want to understand the universe and our planet, we do have physics. It is not that hard. There are videos, there are teachers. We could take one step at a time. That's why our doctrine includes science.
It's very important that not only we explain that Spiritism is founded on religiosity, science, and also philosophy, but that in the end it is not science, it's not religiosity, and it's not philosophy. So what do I mean by this? Let me give you an example. When an artist begins to paint, so here I'm going to use a painter. At the very beginning, before the process starts, you have the canvas and you have the oil paint. Right there, you can separate one from the other. But the moment that that work is finished, you can no longer see what is canvas and what is paint. What you have is a painting. It's the final product. So this is what I mean when I say that Spiritism is based on science, on religiosity, and on philosophy. But once we are inside of it, we can no longer split into parts. We can no longer say, let me look at the philosophical view of God, or the scientific view of God, right? Or the religious view of God. There is God.
So my job is, what we learn from Spiritism is, let me take the best, that I can, or let me use that opportunity as best as I can, so I can continue moving towards my goal, my direction, which is to be God-like, to be relative perfect, as we call it, right? And the way to get there, or the compass, today's world is much easier, right? You go to your car, you press the GPS, put the address on, you get your destination. I like to say that the gospel is our GPS. It's a compass. If we follow Jesus' teachings, if we follow his everything that he taught us, right? This is our this is how we can get to the destination. We can get there without following him as well, but it will take much, much, much longer, right? I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait too much longer. I want to get as closely as possible, as fast as possible, and as reliably as possible, following Jesus' footsteps in order to get there.